which is not a problem for me. So, be wig-wagging in the back to slow down. I had time. Before I go, Matt had something he wanted to say from his presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, so I handed out those surveys again.
Are we ready to go?
There's surveys now, so put out how much work.
So if you didn't hear him, the post surveys, if you all did not complete one, give it to Matt. He needs that. So.
Thank you so much for doing that. He's in an AmeriCorps program, and so they require training in these surveys to show that we've increased knowledge. So anybody's willing to know that, it's really helpful for this project.
Well, we increase knowledge, Matt. Well, we're going to be talking. We'll introduce ourselves, but this session is about holistic. Let's see, what is this session?
Interviewing.
So yeah, that's pretty sad, isn't it? Holistic interviewing and client audit. So without further ado.
I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Linda Hall. I have been a practicing attorney for 17 years. For the first 16 years, I had a private practice where I represented paying clients. And so I'm very new to legal aid and the great work you all do. So I come from a perspective that's totally different, and I will say that being able to represent people and not have to have the discussion about what it's going to cost them for me to provide the services is amazing. It is so liberating to be able to do what I need to do without the barrier to justice being money that they don't have. So I am really happy to be here, and I am excited that all of you have so much information to give to me about some topics that I've never dealt with, because private practice doesn't really have that many issues in Medicaid and benefits and that sort of stuff. And some of the other topics I've done some extensive work in, so hopefully you'll feel free to pick my brain when you need it, and I'll be happy to give any information.
And I'm Teresa Vay Smith, and I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Middle Tennessee in the Cumberlands and in the Oak Ridge office. I know East Tennessee, go figure. But, and I have been there for almost 20 years. And I think we were asked to talk about the holistic interviewing of clients. And when you do that, it's really a conversation. And so we decided to do, for our presentation, we're going to do it in a conversation style. So there'll be no PowerPoints. And so today I just want to talk a little bit about some background and the materials that we have. You should have gotten, they're out right next to Ann over there. And you have, there should be several articles. I noticed there are only 2 articles. We have 2 others, and I'll send them out. 2 of which that did not make your materials are written by Neil McBride, and he kind of pioneered this holistic intake, and they're very helpful. And then there are 2 articles. One was written by Ann Pruitt. So make sure you get those. And then the other 2 items you should have, one is a checklist for legal audit. It's about 7 or 8 pages long. And one is more of a condensed 1-pager. And so I just kind of want to go over these a little bit and tell you a little bit about why we were asked to present at the senior boot camp. And then want to give some examples and then answer some questions. So we may not go the whole time. And if you can't hear me or understand, please let me know. But well, I'll let everybody get the materials, and then we'll get started here. So why are we asked to do a legal audit? If you remember when Ann and Sonia first started yesterday, which seemed like a long time ago, they talked about the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, TCAD. Is that right? Am I saying that correctly? And one of the things that they want us to do is not just look at one particular issue, but we're allowed to look at the individual and then multiple issues that go with the individual. And that's exactly what this legal checkup or legal audit is all about. Typically, your client will come in the office and they'll recognize an issue they have. It may be a housing issue, a divorce. We all know those kinds of issues. They'll come in the office there, but when they come in, they don't always know that some of the problems they're having that is giving a problem with their housing is a legal issue and maybe something that we can help them with. And so when we do a legal checkup on the client, we are there to try to figure out the whole issue that's causing the client the problems they're having. Neil would say in one of his handouts in one of the articles he wrote, it's sort of like having a bucket full of water, and the bucket has 9 holes in it. If you fix that one hole and you get the client the housing issue taken care of, you still have a bucket, you still have water, but it's got 9 leaks instead of 10. Well, that doesn't do a whole lot for that client. Our goal under this legal checkup or this holistic interview is to try to address all the issues that are affecting that client to help make them either get out of poverty or address their issues or whatever else is going on in their lives. So that's the purpose of this. It's also to try to look at preventive stuff that may be going on in their lives that they just don't know it's happening. What do you mean? We heard Russ and Emma talk today. At certain ages, 65, you have so many months before you have to apply for Medicare A and B. If you don't, there's a penalty. Part D, there's a penalty. Some clients don't know that, and they may not do that. So when you talk to them, they may come in about a housing and you realize that they're getting close to that age, and maybe you want to talk about those kinds of issues, help them with those kinds of issues. So it can be preventative, or it can be restorative back on issues that they're already having right now. So that's the reason that we did this and why I think we were asked to do this. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is when I first started, I did domestic violence. And so Neil talked about the legal checkups, and we did this. And it really is issue spotting. And so it was like law school all over, but I just love that kind of stuff. And as I would do that, I learned a lot about families first, and my clients were domestic violence and had violence. And so I figured out there are a lot of these support services. It's like, wow, I can help these clients. This is great. But bam, I was hitting my head against the wall with families first, and I just got fed up with it. And it was like, fiddle. I'm just going to do the lousy divorce and forget about all that other stuff, but I just can't stand dealing with DHS. And I was talking to a friend of mine's mom who had gone through a really bad divorce when my friend was young. And the mom was sitting there, and she said, oh, please don't do that. And I was like, bah. I was all upset. And she said, because when I went through my divorce, I had no one to do that. I wish someone had been out there to do that and to help me along. She said, look at my teeth. I couldn't afford to get my teeth taken care of. And it was like, oh, I'd never noticed that. Because that's what I was fighting for, dental care and other things you could get under Families First. And that had such a huge impact on me. And this woman had gone and she'd gotten her life together and her kids were doing well. So it really matters. And she just said, I didn't know anything. I didn't have anyone. I had an attorney help me through the divorce, but I wish there'd been someone out there. And that had a huge impact on my life. And I went back and looked at this audit and thought, we're going to make this work. And so we look at every client that comes in, and it's a lot of work and it's tiring, and you don't know all the answers and you don't know what's going on. But that's okay. We've got a room of people here. We've got a team of people that do know, and a lot of wealth of knowledge. Not me, but anyway, we have folks, and there are other folks out there too. So what I want to do right now is point out that the legal checkup, the big one, the legal audit that you have, it's 7 pages. It's single space. A lot of stuff in there. And that can seem overwhelming, and that can seem frightening. But if you notice the legal checkup, and I'd like to look at page 1 of it, it talks about health care. Yesterday, Chris Coleman, Shelby Dawson, and I think Daniel Johns, what's her name, talked a lot about health care, TennCare choices, and those kinds of things. We're not talking about substantive information on this. We're just hitting issues. So we're talking about health care, TennCare, Medicaid, Is the person a parent, caretaker, relative? Well, Chris went into depth on that. So you're not supposed to be an expert in every one of these areas, and you won't be. And if you think you will, well, more power to you. I'm not. But these are just ways to kind of hit the issues and to help you think about those kinds of issues that are facing the elder population. I have audit checklist for my intellectually developed one, for kids that are in DCS custody. I have a massive one for all of them. So you can pick and choose and add and take away. And after I leave here today, I'm going to take everything I learned from Matt and stick it in here, because I didn't have half of that in here. So it's a fluid piece of, or fluid checklist, and you can make it fit any way you want to. But it's really more of, if you look on the first paragraph, it says, this list can be streamlined, but this is not intended to be used as an interview checklist. So I don't want to people to be like fearful when they see that and think, oh my gosh, because it's really supposed to be a helpful tool. We also did a short version that sometimes you can maybe add and take away from and put in your case or sit on your desk or whatever, and maybe it can help you do this, that kind of streamlines this a little bit. This is more inclusive and this is a little streamlined. But that's the reason that we are here, is we want to look at our clients as the whole part of the client and try to address all those issues that they may be affecting them, and to help those individuals, because we're the last resort for all of our clients. I mean, they usually don't have anywhere else to go, and if we don't help them or get them close to someone that can help them, I'm not sure there's anyone else that can do it. So that's why we're here and why we were asked to come and speak to you all. And now Linda's going to talk to you a little bit about how we do these kinds of checklists.
So when I saw the holistic interviewing, I was like, what does that mean? Because, I think of holistic in different areas in the practice of medicine, but not necessarily in the legal issues. And so a lot of it is how you conduct your interview. And I know from my own personal experience, I'm not good at following checklists. When I'm looking at a checklist and trying to figure out what I should ask next, I miss what the client is saying to me. It's kind of like when you're in a courtroom and you're not paying attention to the answer to the questions you just asked. Sometimes you ask a question that they just answered because you were so focused on what you're supposed to be asking, you weren't listening to what was being said. And so as I was reading the materials, I thought, well, this is something that I already do. Anytime I meet with a client, my first goal is to establish a rapport with that individual. It's not to go through my checklist and see how many boxes I can check. It's to find out who they are. Do they have a sense of humor? Do they live by themselves? Do they enjoy certain activities? Do they have family around? There's a lot of questions that you could ask just in getting to know the person that give you information that help you address what their legal issues may be. And if you actually listen to their answers while you're asking the questions, sometimes you can put in the back of your mind, okay, you know what, that doesn't sound good, or I think maybe they have an issue there, and you can just kind of store it away for later in the conversation when you get down to what the real issues are that they're there for. I've found a lot of times, and especially when you're in the smaller rural communities, I believe it was Matt that was talking about how people don't trust you, and they don't. If you come into their home, even though sometimes they've called you, and maybe it wasn't them that called you if they're a senior, maybe it was a family member, they're hesitant. Sometimes they're just embarrassed or ashamed. Sometimes they think that, what the problem they have, nobody can help them with, so they don't need to talk about it. And so, going in and just establishing the relationship first and getting some general information helps them trust you and helps them see that you're not there to hurt them or to take something away from them or put them in a nursing home or, do something that they're not going to like. You're just there to help them. And so as I go through my interviews, I have in the back of my mind all the things that they might need. And you can artfully, ask questions that really don't say, do you have a living will and a power of attorney for healthcare? You might say, so, when you go to the doctor, does anybody go with you? Can they talk to your doctor? And when they answer those questions, then you can introduce something else into the conversation that may be their needs. So I think everybody's interview style is different. Maybe you're a great list person and you like to go down making lists and checking the boxes. If that works for you, great. But I just think you need to find the technique that works best for you and work in the information where you can. And I found, that people don't always tell you everything on the first time. Sometimes it's that third or fourth phone call when they say, oh yeah, I got this letter. Do you mind taking a look at it? And so it's all in developing a relationship and having an ongoing relationship with your client. Once come into the office, let me check the box, you go on your way, I'm going to close the case in legal service. Server doesn't necessarily address their issues. And so that's kind of the way I do the interview techniques, I think everybody can do them their own way. And I think you all bring your own perspective and your own areas of practice that you specialize in and that you're really good at into the interview with you. And the great thing about the checklist for me is, you know, the benefits. I just really don't know a lot about the benefits. And so when I'm looking through the checklist, I can say, okay, these are areas that I'm not real good on. And I can kind of review them and figure out maybe a question I can ask, maybe do a little research on them to kind of figure out what I might need to know or what they may say that may alert me to the fact that they've got an issue that I don't know about. And so I really think that how you do it is up to you. I think it's important to do it because almost every senior that I've dealt with, it's never just one issue. There's always a multitude of issues, and maybe it's a whole lot of issues that have led them to this one big issue. But resolving the one big issue doesn't resolve the issues that got them there in the first place. So for me, that's the important thing about the checkup.
Still got that bucket, you still got a leaky one, and we just don't want a leaky bucket. And I think to follow up on something that Linda just said is to develop that relationship. And a lot of times you have to, they're going to come to you with a housing issue, a divorce issue, or whatever it is, POA or something like that. And it's real important to try to address that issue because you've got to get their trust. And then once you've done that, then they'll start talking to you on other issues, or then you have, I guess they've invited you in to start into their life and then their family and to kind of telling you what's going on as well. But we wanted to give you a couple of examples of how to use this checklist and so forth, because the other thing that's neat about the checklist for me is it helps you think out of the box. Because today Russ talked about advantage plans, and I have clients right now, and she is 70 years old and her teeth are horrible. And I get an email saying it's going to be $5,000. She has no money. And I'm like, okay, what dentist do I know? How can I get the oral derm? And I'll beg for everything. So I'll beg and I've had orthodontists pay for the dentist for the braces for the kids. I have no problem asking for that and so forth. But I'm thinking, oh, $5,000. And Russ says advantage plans, dental and hearing. Well, it's not really a legal issue, but my client needs her teeth taken care of because she's got some heart issues. Well, any heart doctor or cardiologist is going to say you need to get that infection. She's got abscess teeth in her mouth. Can't do her heart work. So yeah, her issue may be that she came in as an MSP client, and then all of a sudden now she's saying, I've got some heart issues. And then it's like, oops, you got these dental issues. They can't help you. And my first thought was, golly, you can't get dental care for elderly. And then Russ is in here going, advantage plan. Oh, advantage plan. So it may not be a legal issue, but it's a way to think out of the box to address all of her issues. And ultimately, hopefully, she can get her heart issues taken care of because she doesn't have that infection in her mouth. So part of it is, too, to be thinking about, oh, I didn't think about that, didn't know about that, to help educate you on issues. So when they talk about, yeah, I can't get this heart care because I have an infection in your mouth. And you're thinking, yeah, there's no hope. And then Russ comes up here and says advantage plan. And I'm thinking, let's see, or beg the dentist. So anyway, so we wanted to give you some examples where we've done an active intake and where we've had some good success with it and kind of give you some ideas. So.
And I've been nominated to go first.
Yeah.
And my example is not one necessarily that was full of legal issues, but full of the issues that not necessarily legal, but maybe I could point them to resources there were. So I had a lady that called because their house was getting ready to be sold at the back tax sale. So she and her son came in, and her husband refused to come with her when I called on the phone to talk to her and set up the appointment. I asked them both to come in, and she said, no, he won't come in. He's really angry with me. And so I said, well, just come on in. So they came in, brought their paperwork, and a default judgment had already gone down. The auction was scheduled. So I filed a motion to set aside the default. And, you know, I had to call and get some more information. So I called, and the husband answered the phone and was very grouchy with me and, you know, didn't want to talk. And I said, okay, got a little information. And, I ended up having to call him another time, and he was much more friendly that time and started asking some additional questions or mentioning concerns, or maybe there was something I knew about that. And it turned out that they had not filed income taxes for a number of years. And they were afraid that if they went and applied for their Social Security benefits, that the government would come and put them in jail for not filing their income taxes. So they didn't have any health care. They had no Medicare benefits. They had no Social Security care benefits. Their daughter, had an adult disabled daughter who was not receiving disability benefits, because they were afraid, since she was living with them, if they applied for the disability benefits, again, the IRS would come and throw them in jail, and they would all be homeless, and their grandson would be homeless. And so they were using all their income to pay private insurance in order for her to have insurance to pay for the disability benefits. And so through a multitude of conversations, and every time we spoke, they asked a different question about, well, they were wondering about this issue. And so I was able to direct them to some resources. I can't help them. I did hook them up with a tax attorney that maybe can help them try to resolve the tax issues. And I gave them some names of some disability attorneys that maybe they could go consult with about the disability issues, and, gave them some resources where perhaps they could go and try to resolve some of the issues and get the benefits that they should have been getting. But it wasn't one conversation. It was a multitude of conversations over, a period of time, where just listening to them and talking to them and letting them bring things up at their own pace allowed me to see a whole lot of issues that wouldn't have been there had I just had one talk with them and that was it. And so, again, it's just establishing the relationship with the clients.
And what's neat about what Linda said, there's a legal issue, but there also she was able to direct to resources. And we have lots of resources, and sometimes that's enough to help the client. SHIP, Emma and Russ talked about today. Great resource. May not have known about it. Now you know where to send them. A lot of people are going to be sending them to us. A couple of other issues, and I'm going to give you an example of a client that came in my office, and then I want you all to tell me to kind of spot some issues. But my little client came in, and she's probably 72, and I got a call from a church, and the church, outreach ministry, I'm not sure anyway, but she called and said, we have this lady, and she has dialysis. She's on dialysis. She's around 72, and bless her heart, she's only getting $1,100 or something like that a month in Social Security. She tried to apply for disability, and they said she can't do that. Can you talk to her? Can you help her? So she comes in our office, and so when she comes in our office, I don't do a lot of Social Security, but the upshot was, talking to our Social Security attorney, is there's not a whole lot you could have done. She can't go back and apply for Social Security or SSI now. So, and then it's like, oh dear. So as I sit down and talk to her, it says, so tell me, why were you applying for that? And she said, I just can't make my ends meet. I have $1,100 and it just doesn't make my ends meet for the month. And so she was like, okay, thank you. And it was like, hold on, come back. Now let's talk this through. So if she presented herself in your office and the legal issue that she came in with was, can I apply for SSI? And apparently she can't. I mean, it's a rule. I'm not sure the exact rule, but she couldn't do it, talking to our Social Security attorney. So what would you do to try to help her? Just say, thanks, sorry you can't do it. Nice letter, counsel and advice, have a nice life, see you later. I think under TCAD, that's probably not what they're wanting us to do. They're probably wanting us to address a little more, but we did answer her legal question. So what would you do?
I guess first of all, you got to find out what her other needs are. You only spoke of one. There has to be many other issues she has there.
Mm-hmm.
Once you determine what they are, then you begin to look for resources.
So where would you start looking for thoughtful issues? Yeah, that legal audit right there. So, or it's in your mind, one or the other. So what are some issues you would think about? How am I going to help her? And a one and done probably wouldn't help her, because church had already paid her utility and stuff 1 month, community or.
She's at 70-some years old. Chances are she's not getting no more than $15.
Ding, ding, ding. That's excellent. And that's an excellent point. And I'm going to come back to you, Pete, so I'm not cutting you off. Well, I am cutting you off, but I'll come back. But she's getting $15. Well, if you're 60 and over and you are an elderly person, you're entitled to excess medical expenses. And that's on our little audit here as well. Most of them have unpaid medical bills or travel to and fro. And if you can get in there and see, or they have huge debt from hospital bills and their credit report or whatever. If you do that, you can get in there and we're looking at probably getting her the max of her food stamp benefits. And it's like, so how much are you paying for food every month? About $150. So we're taking $150. We'll get her about 100, whatever, in food stamps. So what's that happens? We've just freed up $150 in cash for her. So her income goes from $1,100 to $1,250. Okay, Pete, you're on the hot seat now. What else would you do?
Oh, what else?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would generally someone of that age, I would find out if there was some local organizations that provide clothing, whether or not there was a commodity organization, whether there was a food pantry, and find out where there were any organizations in town, not necessarily for seniors, but someone who would help someone in need. So she may have an electric bill paid this month. Why don't I send her down to South Central Human Resources or whatever, see if there's still any money left to pay her electric bill. And then if she owns a home, I'm going to ask her, have you applied to get your taxes free? Because that's an extra money that she can get. So.
And in our case, the client didn't own a home, she had an apartment. So I'm thinking, housing. I don't do a lot of housing, but I know folks that do, and they're like, vouchers, do you get any housing assistance? I don't know what that is. Well, let's talk about that. And so you can get some, and I have worked with some other clients before, and someone helped me with the housing assistant. Their rent went from like $650 a month to like $200, depending on their income. So if we can just cut it in half, if it's, say it's $600, we freed up some more money and that's every month with her. What are some other issues we might want to ask her? And we had a conversation right before lunch about these issues and our elderly and what, Amy?
Are they eligible for
MSP, and she is, but it's like, you getting all your Social Security? Well, they've been taking money out of it every month. Wonder if that's that premium. Lo and behold, it was. There's another $134. So as we go through this, you're finding stuff through this, and while she came in to get more money because she wanted to get SSI, we could do nothing with that. It looks like we're able to help her with the different benefits area to be able to increase it and be able to address the issue she has. And then like Pete's talking about, there are a lot of commodities and all kinds of things out there that can help, and resources that we're not going to have to actually do the MSP case, but you can just refer them out. Linda talked about referring them out to the tax attorney. We have a low-income taxpayer project that covers the entire state. There are a couple of them. One's in our office, and I think there's one in Memphis, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, there's some tax attorneys out there as well. So the point of the exercise was not, she came in, I answered a question. I could have said, have a nice life, see you later. But our goal is to try to address every issue that we can so she can have a life. She's on dialysis, and I mean, there are all kinds of things, and y'all can probably help me think of other areas, but that's what we wanted to talk to you all about, is that we could help this lady and address her issue, but we did it by thinking out of the box and asking different questions and figuring out different ways of doing it. Yeah, I can write all these down now. That's a good point.
They refer to APS, and they can put some homemaker services in that for, so that could ease her, 6 hours on dialysis 3 times a week.
See, I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. The last thing that happened was the other day I saw, and of course, when she comes in, she's like, you my attorney? Like, we've met about, she still don't know who I am, but that's what, yep, I am. So, but the other thing, she came in with a little letter, and she just said, this man came to my door and threatened to put me in jail. I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, they said I owed a bill and I haven't paid my debt. And it was like, okay, they can't do that. And so anyway, it's a consumer issue. So, I mean, there are just so many things out there. And so, and then we have a case acceptance. in the Oak Ridge office, where all the attorneys in the office talk about the new cases. And in our office, we all love this little legal audit. And it's like, oh, it's kind of like Pete being in there. Did you think about this? Think about this. And then Mary Gillum talks about the tax stuff. And then it just kind of like shh and explodes. And it's just fun to do. And it helps the client. And so if y'all have any other thoughts, y'all can all just email them to me. So, but anyway, so that was kind of an example of what I wanted to explain, why we think these things are important and why they are important. And then the other example I wanted to give you was a case, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. We had a housing housing family come in. Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
It's important. You need to ask, do you have family there, being her age, on that house? It's always good to have family support, friend support, or church support.
Just church support. Yeah. Her family's another issue. She's paying a family bill. Trying to help the kids. Yeah, that's another issue, but yeah, we won't go there. But she does have a church that's helping her, which is always a good thing. But we had a housing family come in one time, and the man had been sick or done. Anyway, got woefully behind in his the mortgage, and they were getting ready to foreclose, and the housing attorney was like, golly, what are we gonna do? And so then he was like, but the man actually got better, and he was able to go forward fine. So there's no like throwing good money after bad here. But he was so woefully behind, and the housing attorney was like, golly, there's gotta be something. And he had listened to a presentation about the legal checkup, and then he was like, not Mary Gillum's talked about tax stuff. And then he went to Mary and he said, Mary, here's the deal. The guy can go forward and keep the payments up going forward. He has no legal defense. He just hadn't paid the doggone tax. paid the stuff. He's behind. Everyone agrees to it. Is there anything you can do? I hear you can do a lot of neat things with taxes. And she said, yeah. She went back there and she looked at it. She was getting earned income tax credit. I don't know. She did all kinds of stuff. And she ended up, was able to find enough money through the taxes that they were entitled to, and then the housing attorney negotiated with the foreclosure folks, and they were able to save the house, and they stayed in their house, paid the back debt, and yet went forward to pay it forward. But there was no legal defense to this at all. But they were able to do that because he had thought through, there's some legal checkups and different things. So anyway, those are just some examples of, and you all probably have numerous other issues and probably thinks of a lot of better things to do as well. But there's never a right or wrong answer. But our goal is, as I understand our charge from yesterday, is that we have several areas: consumer, housing, health, benefits, estate issues that we want to look for every client, elderly client that comes in. And these legal checkups hopefully will help you be able to learn of different issues, to spot those issues so you can better fill every hole in the bucket of our client that walks in the door. So that's what we have here to talk to y'all about. And Pete's got another question for me. So Pete should be up here.
Pete should be up here.
Next time Pete's going to be doing this presentation. So anyway, but yeah, see, they're just all kinds when you talk to other people, and I just love talking to other attorneys about cases. It's just like fun and spotting those issues. And so, but I will just say this final thing before we conclude is one of the negative aspects of when I have done this presentation before is I'll hear attorneys and case handlers say, you don't understand how many cases I have. And if I do that, that means I have to open a bunch of cases. And, you may. And that's all I'd say. But that's the downside I hear from some is you don't know, and I get that. But I guess in this lease project, it's my understanding that our goal is to try to hit all, and that's what the Tennessee Commission, the court has asked us to do. And so anyway, that's all we have. If you have any questions, we're trying to get you out of here early. So
That's right.
You know what? This actually is a great segue to what I was going to talk about at the end. So maybe I could do that now. And then we can
Awesome.
so we get
vacate the
full
table.
credit for getting out of here early.
Yeah.
Look at your seal. Our ceiling, it really does connect perfectly to what you guys said. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to record.